Top of the feed. I trust and hope all is well with you and yours. Adding value to the volume, one episode at a time. This is Academ-ish, and I'm your host, Jeff Halliday. This is actually our second ever episode, continuing our Farmville Famous series, and that started, of course, with the mayor of Farmville, Brian Vincent. We recorded that conversation on November 13th in part one. You heard about his political career, his arrival in Farmville, and all that. And here in part two, we're going to get pretty hyper local. We discuss some challenging local news as Centra, many of you know, has announced recently that they are closing the Centra Southside Community Hospital's labor and delivery unit and effectively ending all OBGYN care for the Women's Center by December 19th, so right before Christmas of this year. I think you will want to hear what the mayor has to say about that, and honestly what Brian thinks will happen next as well. We will connect that conversation to his thoughts on the current state of politics, and Brian tells us where he still finds hope in that space. We will end our conversation with a segment called Joy-ish. And in that segment, Brian will tell us what is bringing joy and light into his life. You'll want to hear that. Stick around after our chat for tease of the next episode. Please note that Academ-ish is a production of Tailspin Media. This work is separate from my teaching and contributions to Longwood University. You know, this is the week of Thanksgiving, and I'm very grateful for all of your support, your feedback, your reviews, and stars so far. Those of you who have done that know who you are. I thank you, and I encourage you to find the pod on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and all those places. I'm also providing updates on Instagram, TikTok, man, I don't know, Facebook, everywhere. So find it online. Again, thank you so much for your support. And now let's get into that continued conversation with the mayor of Farmville, Brian Vincent. I know a story and an issue that hits home in your family, hits home in my family as well. And that's the Centra Southside Community Hospital and Centra's decision as of, was it December 19th, if I'm not mistaken, to close all OBGYN services, the Women's Center, and of course, labor and delivery. And everyone goes to labor and delivery as and it's certainly important. I don't know about the Vincents. The Hallidays had two children born in that hospital, and so it hits home for us. I know I appreciated, everyone, to our conversation earlier, everyone wants like a quick firebrand response, but I appreciated that at council you spoke from the heart. You spoke about the pain associated with it. You also said, hey, guess what? This is not a Centra necessarily thing. It's not a Farmville thing. This is a rural America issue that is more and more common. I know it's devastating for our community, and I know I've been rambling, but the reason the setup was because I appreciated at the end you said, look, in the things that I can do and the ways that we can, we're going to try and advocate. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about what that advocacy looks like and maybe what response, if any, you hope to get, because Centra doesn't make that decision, on a Wednesday or whatever. That's months, years in the making, more than likely.
Yeah, and so just as a background setup, as you spoke, and to your point, like rural hospitals have been closing OBGYNs for a decade.
Yeah.
And so it's been a common thing, well, pretty increasingly common thing. And now, this is not a partisan shot. This is just the lay of the land. The one big beautiful bill took a big cut in Medicare funding out,
Right.
about 125 billion.
Facts are facts.
Right. And then they said, okay, but we'll inject 50 billion back in for rural healthcare, but that's got to be allocated across the country.
Yeah.
And it has certain application processes to it. And so all of those things, right? Like one, rural hospitals have had trouble recruiting and retaining people to work, physicians to work in those departments. We've seen a decline in birth rates, particularly in rural America.
And that's a national issue. It's a
national issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all these things play a part. And so we're seeing an acceleration of rural hospitals closing departments. A buddy of mine who I knew way before either of us got into politics, he is a brown juice maker down in West Virginia, makes a great whiskey bourbon called Smooth Ambler, and actually sold the company recently. But now he's a council member at Lewisburg, West Virginia, and he had just posted that they're community hospital, Greenbrier Valley Medical, is doing the same exact thing.
Mm.
Goes in their OBGYN. And they've got a DO medical institute, learning institute right there. And they're
Yeah.
still doing it. And
Yeah.
so, but what their article had an interesting component piece, which is the piece that I wanted to mention and bring up as background info, which is the critical access hospital component. So a lot of these rural hospitals are converting to critical access hospitals. Those come with certain stipulations. Virginia's and West Virginia's are very similar. You have to get down to like 25 or 35 beds, and you're doing away with acute long-term care. And
Mhm.
so, what is one of those things that's acute long-term care?
Yeah.
Pregnancy. You're usually there for more than a few nights. And
Mm.
so, what I suspect, just reading the tea leaves of what's happening nationally in rural hospitals and what I see with Centra, is that they will probably start to lean towards critical access hospital because it gives you better access to funding.
Yeah.
And as we spoke earlier, the reimbursement mechanism that we utilize in rural areas, especially,
Mm.
is kind of broken. And so, yeah, it really is unfortunate, and it's a blow to our community to
Massive.
lose the OBGYN, to lose long-term women's health care in that component. Um, we were down to 227, maybe somewhere on that births last year, but from all accounts, from midwives, we were holding pretty steady.
Right.
Um,
And I know you would probably agree with this, but you don't have to nod along. I don't want to get you in trouble. But
yeah,
as I read Centra's press releases, I was like, okay, well, if the state's birth rates are down and the country's birth rates are down, okay, you probably knew that was going to happen. So I understand that the birth rates are down, but and I know you know this, it's not just Farmville; it's every
yeah,
surrounding county in our area. Uh,
right.
and
Yeah,
that's the hardest thing about it. And Centra has, and again, I think people are going to watch this and they're going to get mad at me when I say I remember a Farmville without the Centra Medical Clinic. And let me tell you of the countless number of hours I have spent at that place with my kids, right? It has been an absolute boon to our community. Centra has significantly invested in this part of the state. I don't want to ignore that either. And I think we're
right.
all quick to get really upset. But it's a devastating blow in this community to
It is.
lose that form of care for women in particular.
It is. It creates, we're increasingly seeing a labor and delivery desert here in
Yes.
Southside Virginia. Um, and yeah, I mean, what a crushing blow to the expectant mothers who were
Oh,
getting
yes.
ready to give birth, to the midwives and the folks who worked there who'd been caring for them
Yeah.
for a long time. We had two of them come to our council meeting. I got to speak to them afterwards for a while, and just people who are passionate about what they do and really care about the service they're providing for the community. And now they're going to get farmed out to different locations, and yeah, and then I spoke to ABC 13 News at some point about what that looks like economically, right? To
Right.
now have young professionals look at our area and think, okay, if I move there and I want to build a family,
Mm.
I got to think about the fact that we'll be traveling 50 miles to get care. That that hurts, you know.
I thought the same
Yeah,
thing. I thought about the 2007 version of me that moved here with
right,
a pregnant wife.
yeah.
Like, oh,
And so yeah, I think our mutual friend Lindsay Blakely had a great editorial in the paper and
yes.
mentioned some uh, solutions and some steps people can take, and I encourage
Yeah, I
people to
thought
read
those were
that.
very sound.
Yeah,
Very, and
yeah,
it seemed like Centra, those seemed like reasonable things that Centra could do in the meantime.
yeah. And so I'll say that, yeah, like what it looks like on our end is we'll reach out to legislators. I'll reach out to congressmen, and advocate on behalf of our community. But as I cautioned people, I didn't say it. I tried to allude to it a little bit last night. I didn't want to crush hope, but uh, I don't in my mind, I don't foresee that decision reversing,
Yeah.
unless there's some giant windfall of rural
Mm.
healthcare money available.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's coming. And so, I don't think that situation reverses. I think, and my guess is that more services will be cut in this hospital as they transition to a model that's more revenue positive for them. And I
And
do want to say,
that's a hard thing to look at
yeah,
it that way, but that
yeah,
is how Centra, and I understand we're not trying to be ignorant to the
yeah.
realities of the world, but at to your point, and I know, what the comments would say, and rightfully is like, hey, the timing of it just awful. Like they're going to expand the ER, right? Which
You're a communications guy. Was that a good? Was that?
I talk about countless hours. I have spent 8 hours multiple times sitting in the ER waiting room for the right reasons, because other people who had higher priority issues were going in ahead of me. They needed to revamp that side of the hospital forever, and they are aware of that, right? But to announce that we're fixing the ER while simultaneously closing this wing, you're just giving people an opportunity to draw that parallel and say,
Yeah.
we're willing to invest, to your point about crisis, we're willing to invest in this form of care. Not a good look. The If I were going to take the media professor hat and put it on, I would say the only reason you run that is if someone is going to get ahead of that story and make you look really bad, so you announce it first. There would be the PR slash
Right.
media spin. Let's say some reporter was holding on to it and they were going to drop that bomb, and they were like, all right, well, Brian's got the story. Let's put the press release out today. But oh my goodness gracious. I get to your point earlier, the harsh reality of that is hard. And I hope, to your point about other forms of care in our community, that the cuts aren't drastic, because there's truly just, you mentioned the word desert. There's not a lot of places to go.
Yeah, no, there's not, and it impacts, the folks who don't have as much means as others, right? Like
Yes.
my first child was born in Beckley, West Virginia, and
Mine
so
was in
that
Elkins. Mine
no,
was in
right,
Elkins,
nice.
West Virginia. Yep.
So you know the deal with West Virginia. We had to travel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we that was not happening close by. And then Eliza, our youngest, was actually born in Charlottesville, although Harriet did receive some care leading up to it here.
Yeah.
But it will impact the folks who can't make those decisions that freely, right? Or
Correct.
people who will miss appointments, to Lindsay's point.
Yes.
Will miss appointments because they can't afford to to take off
Gotta work.
work.
Gotta work.
And then when you start missing some of those things, how that impacts the health and safety of the mother and child. Like, there are real impacts to these things that will affect real people, and it's mainly going to be folks who, uh, yeah, don't have the same resources as others, and
Right.
that's the part that's tough. It feels like and I want to preface this by saying that um,
I
I'm
won't
not
edit
one.
it in a way that makes you look bad.
No, no, I'm not worried about
I
that.
get it. Yeah.
I'm not. I recognize that the decision made was a decision passed down from Centra corporate to our Centra South side, and that those decisions are based off of multi-tiered issues that
Yep.
are at a pretty high level. And so I don't want people to bash our local Centra folks because it's not like they were championing this as a great occurrence, but um, it does feel like our world, our country, sometimes you're like, we've been turning our back a little bit on the least fortunate, and
No,
and it's hard.
no, it's incredibly hard, and I agree with you. And it's part of a larger conversation that we touched on earlier. If we ask ourselves what we value, I don't think we'd like a truthful answer to that. Um,
Right.
and that is a really challenging thing to kind of wrap your head around. And to your point, it'll either take a massive windfall of funding or births, or yeah, wholesale change for that. And that's our job as citizens, is to decide, what do we value, and
Right.
then do we vote with that value. And if we vote with that value, then perhaps if we hold people accountable to it, then the votes and the, I guess, the results will reflect those values. And I
Right.
do think that's a harder thing that I think we're collectively coming to terms with, maybe.
Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. um, Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, speaking of like here in Virginia, we have the opportunity to make those decisions, whether you like it or not, every year.
Yeah.
Every year we have an election
Yeah.
in the Commonwealth. And as much as that pains me sometimes because the ads can just seem uh, incessant,
Yes.
it is a reality. Every year we have a chance to impact what's happening in our communities and our Commonwealth. And so I always encourage people to exercise that right. However, you're gonna do it. Just participate because I see stats like 45% of Americans identify as independents. And it feels like there's a real, to your point earlier, there's a real sense that people are kind of fed up with the way things have been going.
Yeah.
And we used to have government that worked via compromise,
Right.
where people recognized that in order to get somewhere good, we had to get buy-in from everybody.
Yeah.
And that meant giving a little. And
Yes.
we don't do that anymore.
Not right now.
I think the last even attempt, I mean, we're dealing with this now,
Yes.
but you think back to Obama and the ACA, like
Holy cow.
he took what was basically a Republican healthcare plan, tried to sell it to the Republicans, and they said, we don't want to do it. But he at least engaged them or tried to attempt to engage them in the process, even though he knew it was going to work. And I think that was the last time. Like now,
No,
since then, like
and there's
whoever's in office, we're just gonna railroad stuff through if we
Granted.
can, and there's no buy-in from both sides.
Yeah,
And
I don't want to take this in a different direction, but
yeah,
for a couple of years, I taught just basically about journalism and about community storytelling. And one of the things we did was we watched Tom Perriello's town halls, which you would think that he was going to be put on a rail and marched out of there.
yeah,
They were incredibly difficult to watch, and showed a true erosion of just a civic understanding and ability to come to the table. And he went out there into the streets and tried to sell it, man. And if you can Google him,
yeah,
oof, do not
yeah.
recommend. And to your point, I just can't imagine why anybody else would watch that and say, well, I'll sign up for that.
Let's sign up for that. That's right.
And so,
That
so most of the time, I think they look at that and they go, okay, well, I'm gonna kind of wait and see. And yeah, it's incredibly hard.
I
It's
only use that. Yeah, I only use that as an example because increasingly, what I see is that Americans like needing to understand to your like the lost sense of we're in this together and that
oh
there has to be like I've said this so many times to different people, it's like nowadays national elections, it's like 75 million people vote this way,
yep.
70 million people vote this way, and then there's a big gap of people who are like, what's going on?
Or don't show up.
Yeah, or don't show up. And then we think we're going to get to American prosperity when one side after an election is gleeful and maybe a little vengeful, and the other side is depressed and angry.
Yep.
And you can see like at election day how like the view of
Yeah.
the economy basically inverts depending
Yep.
on whether or not your side won. And it's like, how do we ever get to true prosperity for this country if we can't get buy-in from more people from across the political spectrum?
Yeah. Yeah, and I hear you. One of my goals with this whole thing, and it won't happen right away, but I hope to do it in time, is to add value to the volume and to
Yeah,
seek engagement without enragement, right? There's got to
yeah,
be a space, and it's not necessarily always an independent one, at least not for me, but
yeah,
there's got to be a space where it's like we have to have real dialogue with, human beings, and we need to learn how to negotiate, how to compromise, how to care, and how to realize that the only people who lose in a win-loss game like that is everyone. We all lose.
yeah. We all lose. Yeah,
We're gonna have, to your point, like this idea that I'm gonna change my entire view of our citizenry and our country based on what happened yesterday. Man, it's bigger than that. We need to be better than that. And I do think there's space for that. And I do
yeah.
think people will listen to it. I really do. I think they're done.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are hungry for it. I think that momentum is continuing to build.
Yeah.
And yeah, the idea that, if you believe really strongly on one side of the duopoly of politics and you think that somehow you are going to browbeat and force the other side to see things exactly the same way you do, that's not going to happen. I mean, if you're truly devoted to that, that is truly a road to sort of authoritative tactics, and we don't need to go there.
Yeah.
But you got to have compromise between people of different views. You got to be
Yes.
able to listen, and I know firsthand how hard it can be because I am in the arena,
And you
and
went
I
door to
know
door, which is
how.
not
Yeah.
who's doing that.
Yeah.
I encourage anyone who's ever not done that, go do that.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
can't even sell Girl Scout cookies door to door. Good luck.
No. Yeah, absolutely. But like just the and I'm not perfect by any stretch. I make mistakes and I'm fallible just like
I mean,
anybody
you're
else.
you're a Bears fan. I get it. Yeah.
That's right. Um, uh, but the like just the strength it takes, I have to talk about fortitude that it takes to be willing to tamp down your passions for a moment long enough to truly try and listen and understand somebody else's point of view so that you can have a conversation that like really attempts to bridge the gaps and get you guys somewhere moving forward together. Like it's hard work. And I see why in our society now where we are hyper distracted and a little siloed out, how people could get away from it. But I think it's probably the most important thing we can do going forward is reconnecting, recognizing the importance of it. Especially, that's one of the benefits of being in a small town like Farmville is we don't get to escape each other.
That's
Like
true. That's true. Saw you walking the dog this morning. There he
that's
is.
right.
There's the guy. Yeah.
That's right.
But there's a
Um,
beauty in that. Like you said,
yeah,
there's a real beauty in
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most beautiful thing in the world to me. My wife jokes me all the time because, I'll walk out the door on my way to a council meeting. She'd be like, "You sure it's still worth it?" And give me a hard time.
You said
And
give me a couple hours.
yeah,
I'll tell you.
yeah. And I talk about whether or not you're going to run again and those sort of things. And she's like, all your misgivings about it. She's like, but your favorite thing is those front porch conversations. Like you love connecting with people and talking to them about these things, and I do. And even when it's hard,
Yeah.
even when it's at its hardest. I mean, I tell people this story all the time. I knocked on some couple's door this last election cycle, and the difference between when I ran for council and people were talking to me about local issues
Yeah.
to 4 years later running for mayor and everybody wanted to talk about
National.
national issues. And I had this guy yelling at me from the jump about whether or not I believed in the Constitution and no, no, no. And there was a lot of just sort of like sharp, short attacks at me, and it was all painted in this national divisive brush. And it took about 25 minutes,
Wow.
but we got to a really good place. And some of that, in that moment was me maintaining my calm and being able to walk through it. But we got to a place
The
that
fact you knew it was exactly 25 minutes demonstrates that you were probably at one point like,
but
okay.
now when I see those folks out like walking
Yeah.
dogs and stuff,
Good.
we wave, we say hello, like it's
Yeah.
very friendly and congenial. And it's like it takes a little effort, but it's so worth it because there is beauty in there.
Yes.
And we're all in this enterprise together and recognizing that you can still have those moments with people is immensely important and beautiful.
It is beautiful. A few years ago during the COVID crisis, I was the department chair and I sent out all these videos to everybody from the department. And I stole something from the Red Green Show which Sam Hovan called me out on when he saw me next. I don't know if you ever saw the Red Green Show growing up.
I'm familiar with it. I
You
can't
would
tell what.
love it,
Yeah.
Brian. You would love it. You are dressed like him right now. But he used to end every show with different variations and themes. But one of the things he used to say was, "Keep your stick." He's Canadian, right? Keep your stick on the ice. I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. And I remember, like, the show is stupid. It's silly. He's fixing things with duct tape, right? The show is just a bunch of sketches slammed together. But at the very end, he direct addresses the camera and says, "Keep your stick on the ice. I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together." And so when I was making those videos, I just did the same thing. I kept the stick on the ice thing. I thought most Virginians would be like, "Stick?
Right.
Is it cold where he is?" But no, yeah, it's not. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Brian, is because it's not a platitude with you. You mean it, and that it is of value. We know it's of value, but it takes a lot of courage to stand there with someone. And I encourage you to keep doing it. And keep going to the front porches, I guess, as best you can. But to Harriet's point, if you ever decide maybe not, you can come to my front porch anytime, buddy. I'll talk to you.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think, at least for the time being, I was having a lengthy conversation recently about, how do we bridge the gaps and try to bring people together. And I just keep getting stuck on ideas around first principles. And I think I mentioned this in a previous interview,
Mm,
the four cardinal virtues that intersect between religion and philosophy, uh, courage, wisdom, justice, temperance. If we can focus on some of those first principles about how to be a good human being, and the first principles that this nation has always aspired to embody, um, you know, I think we can bring people back to coming together, right? And so, as much as I lament where we are or seem to be, I continue to have hope that that we can recall our better nature and move forward together. I had a front porch conversation where a guy was like, "How can you be so optimistic?" Yeah, and I was like, "I don't have a choice, man. I got
yeah.
kids. I gotta believe that I can make this world a better place for the next generation. I have to. That's what we've always tried to do."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
God forbid we ever lose it, right?
Yeah.
And to me, as we brought up before, what better thing to value than that? I think
Right.
that's it. Are we doing our best? And if we're not, no one's going to come do it for us. So
That's right.
let's step in there. It's I think about John Mayer's song, "We're Waiting on the World to Change." Nope, that's not how that works, John.
Yeah. That's right.
It's our
Be
turn.
active in your own rescue.
It's our turn. Brian, the last thing I want to ask you, and it's something that I plan on asking all guests. The podcast is Academ-ish. We call this maybe joy-ish. But I want to ask you to summarize very briefly or tell us something that is bringing joy and light into your life.
Ah, I'll try not to get emotional.
Yeah,
Um,
good luck, because I can't,
yeah.
I can't without it.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. I'm at that stage where both of my girls, are branching into different activities, right? And
Cool.
and have these extracurricular pursuits. And there is really nothing brings me any more joy than watching them engage in those pursuits, whether
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
them playing basketball for their school, or Eliza performing piano at recitals, or like, I just it's my favorite thing in the whole world,
Yeah.
man. It brings me such joy to watch them putting themselves out there and chasing things that they want to get after. That makes me real happy.
It's perfect. There's no better response than that. Brian Vincent, thank you very much. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Absolutely.
My heartfelt thanks to Brian Vincent. Someone had to be the first ever guest on the Academ-ish podcast and Farmville Famous and all that. Brian, thanks for doing that. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Next week's episode will feature another Farmville Famous person, local legend, Kanan Townsend. For those of you who don't know, Kanan is the executive director at the Robert Russell Moat Museum, and here in Farmville, he also serves as a member of the Prince Edward County School Board. So Kanan and I talk about that work and a lot more. We have a lot of fun in the process, and honestly, it's not fair because he's an incredibly attractive man. Look how handsome he is. It's not fair. It's not fair to the rest of us, Kanan. But anyway, Kanan and I have a great conversation, and we'll give that episode to you next week. So follow all of our socials to get details on when that drops. Until then, I encourage you to listen to the mayor of Farmville, Brian Vincent. Keep believing that we can work together and that, yes, we can make the world a better place. You heard him say that, right? Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours from me and my family. Thanks so much for engaging in this adventure with me. It is an adventure, and I'm so thankful you're along for the ride. We'll see you next time.